Yes, which was very helpful this time because I was waiting for those teas too long. And I felt like, oh my God, I have to read the manuscript at home before going down to Gothenburg to shoot it. And I have to start doing it. So then I went to my wardrobe and like, okay, I'm just gonna take this one and that one. And then I could start. But no, that was funny though, going to casting without, anything. Then after that, I gained these 40 pounds, 18 kilos, and I was training 4 times a week, bodybuilding from waist and up, and I was eating every 1.5 hours, and that was pretty hard. And then I became Tina like that. But going to that casting with none of that, I didn't think of it so much. But I did have a really good casting director who helped me doing like the first thing that we sent to you. Yeah. And I had been reading the short story and parts of the manuscript, and I was really curious about who on earth is going to direct this. And I thought that would hopefully.
I think you were playing over like a little bit in the first casting. Mm-hmm. You were doing 150% instead of 98%, which was.
150.
Yeah, so it was a little bit over, but I thought, okay, it's because you're working with a casting director.
Yeah,
and you know what I mean?
I don't know which part, what she sent to you though.
Probably sent the
I
bad
say
one.
something. When you came in for your audition, I mean, we had casted every single actress that was over a certain height, because that was what we started out with, wanting someone that was really big, like a really big, tall person. And then you tried every single one in Sweden and Scandinavia, and there wasn't a single one who cut it. And then we had to maybe we have to find someone that's not this tall person. Yeah. And then we had to.
Yeah, so basically, I mean,
lower our standards, but focus on the acting.
It's getting brutal.
So, I don't know, but this works as a troll lens, apparently.
Well, one of the many things that's great about this movie is the sense of a real emotional realism to it, even though it's kind of a bit of a fantastical premise. I don't run into a lot of trolls in my daily life, but there's an emotional grounding to every scene, and that seemed to be really important in the acting, but also in the way it's filmed.
One thing that I realized first time I did a movie, first time I directed a movie, or what do you call it? First time I told people where to stand in front of the camera, was the fact that there is this is really banal, because now we know, when you see movies, there's something emotional going on, and people react in a certain way, blah blah. But for me to actually see that happen, actually see a person cry because it says your mom is dead, and I knew that person's mom wasn't, that was a magical moment, because it was it sounds like super banal, but it was magical because I thought I really want to do that, but I can't. It's okay, birds can fly, I really want to fly, and it's banal, but I know I can't. And it's the same thing with this kind of what you call emotional realism. And I was I knew I had an idea that it would be really nice if Eva and Errol connected in a good way, and forgot about their prosthetics and saw each other as human beings and connect, had the chemistry. But to actually see that happen, to actually see that it works, and I got moved, and sometimes I cried, and it's so forth. Then I thought it was okay, I know the machinery, but there's this magic that I don't know how it happens, Yeah.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Anyone have anything they want to ask about? Way in the back.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of John Aviv's work. I was wondering if you ever consider, directing, making more of his books into movies.
More of his books?
Yes.
The question is whether Ali would consider adapting more books by this author.
I think now I'm crossed over into mainstream, so I don't need him anymore.
Well, this reminds me of when we did an interview a month ago. You mentioned that you didn't really think of this as a genre film, or in terms of genre. Is that right?
Well,
or you don't want it to be just limited to that idea?
It's like I'm not like a fanboy of genre. I mean, I did Shelley, and it was, as I said, it was like meant to be horror, but it didn't really live up to the expectations of horror fans. And it was the same thing then, that I thought it's fascinating to work with somebody with something that has this kind of a contract, you know. So you come, you know, you want to watch a horror movie, and you know that you're gonna be scared. So you're waiting for that, and like, so if it goes really slowly and deliberately, you don't say, oh, another slow, deliberate European movie. You will say, oh, this guy's gonna scare me at any time, you know. So in that way, things are being read differently, you know. And this was also, you know, the fact that there are a lot of, you know, for example, the whole idea of, you know, doing a movie about the other, you know. I mean, Precious is also a movie about the other. I mean, a lot of other examples of something that is more like social realistic is also like, could be a movie about other that has different sexuality, different, you know, orientation, I don't know, different skin color, whatnot. But to actually make it, you know, to kind of elevate it and to make it more abstract, this, you know, to make a movie about other and put they say like, it's not like Native Americans, they're trolls, you know, or whatever. I mean, that it's not only a gimmick in
Right. It's not like a one-to-one metaphor or something.
no,
Yeah.
and also it's not a gimmick, because I think, you know, it would probably help you, hopefully, you know, I don't know, I mean, it's really a question to you. It helps you to like understand something outside of your political spectrum, you know, without thinking, oh, so what I think about like black people or white people, blah, 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 and you like experience maybe the essence of being the other, or the essence of how does it feel to be the other, without like that other being specific, you know?
Another
Like
question.
the troll myth, kind of how I look at it. Undefined scareness. You see something that you don't know really what it is out there in the forest. Is it a stone, or what is it? That's a very human thing to do. Get scared.
Kind of irrational fears. Question over here.
Yeah, how long during the shooting did it take to put the makeup on every day?
Now the question is how long each day it took to put the makeup on.
4 hours to put it on and 1 hour to take it off. 10 hours of shooting in between.
Question in the middle.
Yeah, what was your research process for figuring out how to be a troll?
I think everyone heard that.
50% animal, 50% human. I was working with that. And I was studying
No sugar added.
no sugar added. And then I was looking at YouTube on dogs as working in custom, how they use the nose and lip together, how it's like it sits together, and that's how I worked on. This is technically, and also I was working on how this person is, because making a troll is hard, you know, it's just a fantasy, an idea. So I had to make it very concrete. So, and also, you know, this theme with the civilization and wild nature, and this person is in wild nature, that's where she belongs. And so I also worked with how people have like architecture, how everything is designed for humans, like getting in and out from a car is uncomfortable, sitting on a chair is uncomfortable, going like in through a doorway feels like claustrophobic, and then you're coming to a house and they have rooms, oh, for God's sake. I mean, that's how I worked with it, and to create, and a lot more, but that's some important things.
Another question. I'm curious, there's one scene I kind of have to ask about, even though you'll probably tell me that it's a very ordinary scene and we shot like every other scene. But the scene where, you know, the love scene in the forest is just a really special moment and comes as a complete surprise. And at least to me, I wonder if you could talk about, like, you know, what went into making that, and, you know, how, I mean, just, yeah, how you got the effect you did with that. Not literally the special effect, although that's impressive too.
I I mean, we were working. We took a long time for that scene, and we were going through and making up blockings. And during that time we were doing it, we were also trying and what level to you directed us in, like how much to do and how little. And I think we took a few takes with like in different levels, and then you could cut it together as you do. And so we were trying it out at the time when we were there. Basically when we were trying out the blockings.
And I mean, because it's sort of what you were just talking about, this kind of mix of animalistic but also kind of human-like, but it's something completely different. I mean, you really feel like you're seeing, you know, a different experience and getting inside their skin. I found it pretty beautiful.
I think it's one of those scenes where, you know, where you're shooting it, like when you're doing like each take, you have this spectrum from starting from, okay, these are pretty regular, like character. This could be like an autumn day for like two like fat middle class people in the forest, and then up to like they're like really strange animals, and also like with the acting, I think one thing that I was really grateful was that, you know, I could work with, you know, Eva and Eo in a way that they would be very generous with what they did, and they didn't think, oh, this is like, oh, now we're like overdoing it, now we're playing over, now we have to be more, we have to show more constraint because this would be like overacting. And they trusted that like they would go with their impulses. Maybe it looks like crazy and grotesque and bad or whatever, but there's also editing, there's also tomorrow, and to actually leave that choice to me, instead of like trying to limit the scope of, you know, trying to like not make, you know, failures. And I think that is really the difference between like the kind of collaboration that works and doesn't work for me. And this is really like a clear example of a scene that could gone terribly, terribly wrong. You know, if they tried to, because basically this scene lives from being over the top. So if they were like, you know, if they were like kissing on a couch, it would just be like so wrong, right? I mean, it would just feel like, okay, what is this like? There's like two actors in prosthetics kissing on a couch. I mean, like, it just felt really wrong. And in a sense, like, to get this kind of excess, you need the permission, you know?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the same if they were just watching TV and started making out or something.
Yeah, that would never happen, no.
Never happen. Any other questions? Here in the front.
Well, I'm really thankful that you kind of explained that scene was very like explanatory, because I think that for I don't know, at least for me, maybe it's being an American perspective, there isn't a lot of story behind trolls, right? And I had like a friend growing up whose mom was Norwegian, and they had trolls everywhere, and we're like seen as this like scary thing that only comes out at Christmas or something. But other than that, I mean, you know, very little around trolls. And kind of throughout the film, I'm thinking like, what is the Scandinavian and Swedish like story behind a troll, and what is that, like a mischievous evil thing? Is that this kind of lucky thing, like these like trolls are really not pairs, right? Like the American culture, and then.
Trolls in the White House.
Like the peach-colored president or something, but like, so to finally like, to kind of have these thoughts under your mind, and then to have all of the questions kind of answered and filled, and to have that scene where it's like, this is how it comes, this is how this works, this is what it does, and it is animals. There's not much of a question, but just to say that I really appreciate how everything kind of like was very high up and very felt very satisfying, and also fantastic.
But I think that would be probably, I'm thinking, when I grew up in Iran, where I come from, you know, I watched some Western movies, and the element of, you know, you like very quickly understand, okay, this is about this long street and about some people who are armed, and there's like a fight for survival. And this is basically what you need to know. And then like, you know, they're riding horses and whatnot. And I think that like minimum amount of information creates this kind of myth, or like the space. And you don't need to know necessarily about the gold rush. You don't really need to know about like how the Western frontier, you know, was, you know, and the whole geopolitical, socio-political situation, but you still might get a sense of it, you know? And I think, I mean, coming as an outsider, I know as much about trolls as it's in the Wikipedia page, basically, which I read a couple of times, you know, also during the shooting, just to make sure that I get it right. But you know, and I thought, okay, well, it's probably a good thing that I'm an outsider, because, you know, I don't want to send a booklet to every person in the audience and say like, please read this before you watch the movie. It's like the concise history of trolldom. You know.
Yeah, I think you give just enough information that you get a sense of it.
Also to get a sense of, okay, these guys are not human beings and they have a history you don't really need to know, trust me, and would just like cut the crap and go after it, you know? It's like, otherwise it would just be, I would spend like half an hour to set up something just to come to the exact same point again,
Right.
basically.
It
You
would be
know?
like